Surely there are more questions. Ma'am.
So today, unincorporated, we have no deputies or sheriffs or whatever you want to call it in Wildomar at all times.
Well, no, that is not true. We have this, the station area is broken down into zones. One zone encompasses, I should say, most of Wildomar. We have deputies assigned to that zone. We also have specific to cops deputies, community oriented policing deputies, assigned to this southern zone. We also have regular patrol deputies assigned to deal with radio calls and all of the other services available. Now, when we say they're not specifically assigned, that is to say I don't have a specific deputy assigned to a specific area except those 2 cops deputies. The others cover the county area, and we spread them out. We give them a certain number of designations so they know the area they're supposed to stay in, and they generally try to do that. But as a city, you end up contracting for more than that, and you get the coverage around a 24-hour clock, and make sure we have those officers in place for you. Typically raises the level of service. Sir?
Could you address how Wildomar would benefit from taking advantage of the resources that the county would bring to bear to defend the city in cases of claims against officers and so forth?
That's probably one of the most important features of a city contracting with the Sheriff's Department for law enforcement services. The Sheriff's Department completely indemnifies the city. That is to say, if I have an officer, let's say, who does some malicious act and harms a citizen in Wildomar, and they decide to sue the city, they don't sue the city. The city has been indemnified. They sue the Sheriff's Department. And that's a huge, huge issue. Because that's a very costly item, is indemnification, is liability insurance.
Thank you.
Question, sir. Yes. Have you created an estimate of what the crossover baseline service that you're going to provide in July? What would the baseline, where we really get no additional services, what would that cost us?
As I said, I don't have the cost numbers on the top of my head.
Getting close to city,
Yeah. Well, if the root of your question is how many people are you going to have, that depends on the city. How many people are involved in the incorporated area? 27, 28,000. So if we go with one, kind of the industry standard is 1.0 officers per thousand, and that would be 27 officers assigned to this contract, which is substantially more than 2 or 3 or 4 that we keep in the county area.
Are you going to talk further into your conversation about, when you were at the high school, you talked about if we contract the Sheriff's Department, how the county services would provide additional emergency support, disaster support
Sure.
that the city would not be able to afford to have.
Sure.
You were talking about the helicopter.
For example, the city of Murrieta has its own city police department that's attached to the city. Whenever they get into something over their heads, they require what we call mutual aid. They call the county and we respond. The same would happen with the city of Wildomar. Except the main difference is we're already here as the Sheriff's Department, and so the services would probably, the request for services would be shortcut and much more quickly available.
Well, you had said before about bringing in emergency support helicopters.
Oh, sure. Suppose we have a problem with a rapist in the community. Well, then we don't just only confine our interest with those officers who are signed to the contract. We bring the whole army in, and deal with that problem. That's what our community-oriented policing team deputies do full time. When they identify a problem through our crime analysis section, they identify a problem, and then we put all the resources in to deal with that problem. And so that's another one of the benefits of contract.
I thought that was important that
Yeah,
you
it's a big
mentioned that
benefit.
again.
In the area, and I'll use the term forensics, but what I'm talking about is the ability for a police department to conduct thorough investigations, some of the laboratory assets that, say, the Sheriff's Department has, versus if they were to go it alone as a city. How does the city use the county's facilities, or do they have to create their own? I'm looking for the depth of your ability to deal with?
Prior to joining the sheriff's department, I was the police chief in 4 different municipalities in 3 different states. Small police departments, less than 75 personnel. That was a chronic problem for us in every case. We did not have the resources to fully investigate major crimes. Say we have a homicide, we want a full forensics team to come in. We didn't have a full forensics team. So we had to call on mutual aid from another agency. Do what we could, call on mutual aid. With the sheriff's department, our forensics teams are countywide, and they're not respecters of city boundaries. Whenever we have a homicide in the city like Elsinore, our central homicide unit is there immediately. We coordinate all the resources of the county dealing with that. In fact, most often on a homicide, I'll have 25 to 40 deputies, sergeants, investigators, forensic techs swarming the area dealing with that homicide, which you obviously couldn't do with a small team. Ma'am.
How are pensions being
You don't have to worry about that because the deputies, all the employees are employees of the county, not employees of the city. You're contracting for the service, so all you pay is a contract rate. Now, all of that stuff is figured out into a very complex formula the county has gotten very good at building to cover all the costs for our service. So when you pay the rate, let's say, for the simplicity, let's say the rate is $1,000 a year for all your services. Well, built into that $1,000 a year are all the costs that we incur as a county sheriff's department to provide those services. Clearly, it would be much more than $1,000. You see the point? I'm still on green, ma'am.
What kind of services would be available for major emergencies such as a serious earthquake or fires?
Did you all hear the question? What kind of services would be available in case of a major emergency, earthquake, fire, flood, etc.? All the services of the county. Indeed. And in fact, that would be the case whether you're or not you're a city. I mean, the county is going to respond to any major, on any major issue. Chief Hawkins and I were working very closely together when we had the fires. You know, getting ready and planning for the possible evacuation of large areas of the county up in the Temescal Canyon area. We all work very closely together, and all those resources are brought to bear, whether you're a city or not. The last thing we want is people to suffer from disaster. Man, in fact. Oh, last question, I'm on red. Well, the big change is the officers are dedicated to the community. And so you have those officers assigned to the community, which means less response times and more officers available at any given time of night or day. I'm glad you're telling me that.
Good answer. Good answer.
Thank you, Chief Fetherolf.